Greetings, friends, fellow patriots, and fellow citizens, and even non-citizens, and welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention News and Opinion podcast. It's our last podcast before Christmas, so I want to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas. We hope you have a wonderful holiday. The weather seems to have broken a little bit. It was pretty cold here in Northeast Ohio, but we're getting into the 30s and 40s and even saw a little 50s this week. And I don't think we're even going to have a white Christmas, so that's kind of interesting because, boy, we sure had a lot of snow up till now. So welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us. This podcast and our website and our emails, our text messages, and our social media and all the donations that we make to help other conservative groups succeed come from you, from the loyal viewers and listeners and supporters of the We the People Convention, who for the past 16 years have been funding our efforts. If you have the wherewithal at the end of this year to help support our efforts going into 2026, where we're going to need a lot of resources, just go to wethepeopleconvention.org and donate. And we'd prefer if you could do a smaller monthly donation instead of just one big donation. But I know at the end of the year, people do make bigger donations. And I do have to tell you, we are a taxable nonprofit organization. Our donations to us are not tax deductible. And there's a reason for that, because the whole IRS targeting the Tea Party. And so we don't have to disclose our donors. We don't have to, nobody knows what you give to the We the People Convention. So that we think that's a fair trade-off for not getting a tax deduction. Anyway, welcome to all of you. If you're new to this podcast, we welcome you. We have lots of different people coming and going because of what we're doing on social media. We're now on, pretty much everywhere. We're on, Facebook and YouTube and MeWe and X and Getter and Gab and, Instagram and all kinds of things. So welcome to any of you who found us through that, source. We think you'll enjoy this podcast. We think it's unique. What do we do here? This podcast is designed to be a weekly news aggregation show. We look at what happened this week that's important to you, and more importantly, that's important to our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity, because that's what we do. We fight to defend and protect our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity against the statists, against the people who want to control your life. We want to control our own life. So that's why you're here. We've got a really good show for you this week. There was a lot happening, and we're not going to talk about the things like, the Brown University shooter or, any of that stuff, because that's not important to our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's how we focus ourselves. If you want to know more about our organization, go to wethepeopleconvention.org, and right on the front page, there's a button that says Learn About the WTPC, so you can see that in the 16 years we've been in existence, we have done major things and accomplished a lot, and we're going to have to do that again in 2026, where I said last week, 2026 is when we win the war. This is when we completely deplete the communists, the Marxists, the Democrats, the socialists, whatever you want to call them, of their ability to participate in the United States as a political force. That's how you win the war. So we're going to be focused on that after the new year, and we'll talk about that in depth. And so if you're watching this, you need to get rested up over the holidays and get ready to fight like you've never fought before, because this is the big battle. This is the end if we can win. If we lose, it's the end of all of us. It's the end of our nation. If they take back the House, and not even the Senate, just the House, it will be impeach, slow everything down, destroy the country. It'll be horrendous. We lived through this already. We never want to live through it again. That's why we've got to get ourselves fired up to fight and win in 2026. Okay? So let's get on with our podcast. And, I think you're going to be really, happy to see some of the stories that you'll see here that you just don't see anywhere else. So thank you for joining us. Let's get started. So the first thing I want to talk about is President Trump, made a year-end address to the nation, and it's on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org. It's pretty short, so you can watch the video in our video section, wethepeopleconvention.org. In our video section, you'll see the full video of his presentation to the nation. Now, he basically it's kind of was like he started to go on the road again in Pennsylvania last week, and then last night Trump was in North Carolina pushing the economic thing because the Democrats are attacking. Oh, the economy's terrible and all that stuff. And you come here for truth. You come here to expose the lies, and that's what we're going to do. And President Trump did that in his speech. President Trump told the nation his administration is prioritizing the U.S. economy and reducing the cost of living during a primetime address from the White House on December 17th. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it, Trump said, highlighting his accomplishments since taking office and previewing his agenda for the next year. Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. Now, on our website, you'll see a link that actually will show you charts and graphs of the things that Trump is doing that are improving the economy. There's no question about it. And it was interesting because the lamestream media, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, all those guys actually covered Trump's speech, which I was surprised. But then as soon as it was over, they called him a liar. They literally called him a liar. You can see it on X, these video clips, where President Trump said, we've got inflation under 3%. And they go, oh, no, he's lying. It's over 3%. Except it's really not. The only news, and I'll show that to you in a second, we always bring receipts. The only news really in this this address to the nation was that President Trump is going to give every one of our 1.4 million, I think, members of the military a check for $1,776 for 1776 going into the 250th anniversary of our country. And he's taking that money from some part of the military budget. And so that was, I think a lot of us felt that was okay. Our military members deserve everything we can give them. And, so that was the only news that came out of it. But again, they said, oh, he's a liar about inflation. And then the next day, because that was like on Thursday night, Friday it comes out, inflation drops to the lowest level in months, defying expectations of an uptick. Inflation dropped in November, ending a months-long acceleration of price increases and offering relief for households strained by cost hikes. Government data on Thursday showed the reading came in below economists' expectations. Consumer prices rose 2.7% in November compared to a year earlier, marking a notable reduction from 3% year-over-year inflation in September, the most recent month of which complete data is available. Inflation stands at its lowest level since July. And the report offered the first look at price increases in nearly 2 months after the government shutdown stopped these agencies that compile all the data. And despite overall reductions of inflation, some high-profile items like coffee and beef continue to be really high and expensive. You and I know that. Coffee prices jumped nearly 19% in November, despite Trump taking the tariffs off of Colombia to try to lower that. And I think that's that's going to happen. It just takes time. But he did act on that. And while beef prices climbed almost 16%, and he also changed the tariffs, I think it was on Argentina, to bring more beef in to get prices down. Plus, he did some things to help the American beef industry. Egg prices plummeted in November, however, falling 13% compared to a previous year. And you guys are seeing it at the gas pump. There's gas for under $2. The gas here is like $2.45. And for the first time in like 20 years, the average price of gas in the United States is under $3 in the mid 250s. And that's how you cut inflation. That's how you improve things. And of course, they don't want to report that. And this is just a video clip to show you what a shock this was to the lamestream media.
The number of the morning, the CPI maybe coming in a little bit better than expected.
2.7%,
a little light here. I'm just reading the headlines here. Year over year, 2.7. Ex-food and energy core, 2.6. So 0.4 off. That is a very good number here. And it really, I have not looked at the internals. I'll look at them now, but it suggests that the internals are good as well.
Oh, wow. What a surprise. What a surprise. Because they're all trashing Trump. See, and this is important. What is our job? How do we protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity? Well, we have to obviously get out the vote. We have to support people who support America first and MAGA, right? So in 2026, we've got to elect a lot of people. And unfortunately, we've got to elect a lot of people we don't even like, but to keep our coalition going. But the other part of the fight, what else you and I do, the reason you watch this show, is we have to win the messaging war. And we're losing it. You and I have to up our game by sharing stories like I'm putting out here and will continue to put out in this show to go back against the lies that the economy is terrible. Oh, it's terrible. It's not. It's not great, but it sure as hell is getting better. But you know what? 61% of Americans think Donald Trump's doing a bad job with the economy. Are you kidding me? That's insane. That's a sign that you and I aren't talking it up enough. And so we give you the weapons to do that. We give you the tools. And any of the stories that we cover in this podcast are at wethepeopleconvention.org. Click on the podcast page, and they're listed every week, and there's a link to the original story. And then you can send that story to other people. In our chapters player, it takes every story and creates a separate link for that story, so you can click on that link and start right at that story, and you can even copy the link and text or email it to someone, and they can watch the video that says, oh, really? Inflation's down. They're telling you it's up. And then this story. This is an important story. Good jobs report. 64,000 jobs added in November, while unemployment rises to 4.6%. Well, the unemployment rising isn't really a good thing, but the payrolls are good news. U.S. payrolls beat expectations in November, even as the unemployment rate rose more than anticipated, a combination that suggests further cooling in the labor market. Employers added 64,000 jobs last month after shedding 105,000 positions in October, according to the delayed data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. The economists had expected a gain of only 50,000 jobs and an unemployment rate of 4.4. The Bureau also revised September's payroll growth down by 11,000 from 119 to 108. Average hourly earnings edged up by 0.1% or 5 cents. To get this, average wages are $36.86 compared with a 0.4% gain registered in October. On a 12-month basis, average hourly earnings have slowed to 3.5% from 3.7%. Healthcare and construction accounted for most of the employment gains, with payrolls ballooning by 46,000 and 28,000 respectively. Okay, so here's something that President Trump has been saying when he's been out on the road promoting the economy. If you look, and we reported it on this podcast, when you looked at what Joe Biden was doing for 4 years, Americans, actual Americans, we're losing jobs every quarter. And you know who was getting them? Illegal immigrants and government workers. Literally, all of the job, quote unquote, growth under Biden was hiring their friends into government. And so part of the reason the employment numbers aren't as high as they could be is Trump's laying off government workers, which we want. Why? They don't produce anything. If you're in a company, you're adding to the GDP. If you're employed by the government, you're a burden on the taxpayer. Do you see the difference? It's a big deal, but they never talk about that. You need to talk about that. You need to look into that. More good news. Again, they're talking down Trump. Oh, it's terrible. Everything's terrible. I just told you about gas prices. Well, why is that? And how is inflation going to go down? Well, here's something that's big news. Nobody's talking about it. Texas drives U.S. energy production to new record highs. American energy production has surged to record high levels, with Texas leading the push as crude oil and natural gas exports soar. In November, U.S. oil and gas industry smashed production records, proving once again that domestic energy isn't just a resource, it's a powerhouse of resilience. From crude oil peaking at an unprecedented 5.9 million barrels per day to natural gas exports soaring, the numbers tell a story of innovation and grit, largely fueled by Texas's Permian Basin and Eagle Ford shale areas. Just the News reported. The U.S. Energy Information Agency confirmed that U.S. crude oil output reached an all-time high of 5.9 million barrels daily this month. The huge figure is a major signal that America can meet its own needs without bowing to foreign whims. Energy independence means American independence. Energy independence means lower costs of living for everything. Texas alone accounts for over 42% of domestic crude and nearly 30% of natural gas produced, cementing its role as the nation's energy backbone. The Permian Basin, sprawling over 86,000 square miles across Texas and New Mexico, churns out half of U.S. crude and a fifth of the natural gas. Even with the 20% fewer rigs operating, now get this, even with 20.4% fewer rigs operating, Texas boosted combined oil and gas output by 5.8% through November. Efficiency like that slaps down any narrative of decline in our ability to produce. Even with fewer rigs operating this year, productivity gains in regions like the Permian Basin show the efficiency and innovation of oil and gas producers. Innovation, not ideology, is what's keeping American energy on top. And I read a story online this week where they've actually discovered that they can use these little black particles that are a side effect of part of the energy industry to use for fracking instead of sand, and they're getting like 30% more natural gas out of the wells for no extra cost. That's efficiency. That's the American way. That's a story no one's telling, no one's talking about. But you can share this story. And again, remember, when we're and I've taught you this many, many times, but it's always worth remembering. This holiday season, you're not going to tell people things. You're not going to say, come and lecture them. The way it works is you win people over by asking them questions. So you've got to be at an event, or you're watching a football game with family, or at a Christmas thing or whatever, a New Year's thing, and say, hey, how do you think the economy's going? And get them to tell you. And then you say, oh, you think it's going too bad? Did you know that inflation's down? Do you know that energy prices production is way up? And they don't. You get them to try to defend their position, and they can, and that gives you the opening to educate them and change their opinion, change their view, right? We taught that technique many times. Ask questions, don't lecture, okay? All right. So let's continue with this theme because, again, Trump talks about, this whole, this whole idea of, the economy is being better, even though, we had 9% inflation with Biden. It takes time to get these things down, all right? And quite frankly, you guys know how inflation works. Why did I said wages are $38 an hour? You and that's like science fiction. I think my first job I made, I think it was $1.19 an hour, okay? But that's a long time ago. And that's what inflation does. So inflation causes prices to rise, and they really don't go back down. What happens is your ability to afford them goes up and up, all right? Trump's working on both ends. He's trying to increase your pay, and it is increasing. I just showed you that, all right? And try to cut your costs where they can. It's both sides, and man, in 2026, that's what's coming, all right? That's what's coming. So you say, okay, what else is Trump doing? inflation's down, jobs are better, all right? Energy is way down and going to get even cheaper. And then he does this deal. Folks, you got to watch this. I put this press conference up on our website at wethepeopleconvention.org. 9 big pharma companies cut prices for Americans after pressure from Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, no one in American history could or would do this other than Donald Trump. Why? Because every president, every congressman ever is owned by Big Pharma. Big Pharma, as we saw in COVID, their economic power, which they get mostly by taking our tax dollars when they shouldn't get them. Can you say Obamacare subsidies? We'll talk about that in a little bit, okay? They control the politicians. You don't. You don't. They don't control Donald Trump. And the evidence is in this press conference they just had. So let me just read a little bit. 14 of the largest U.S. and European-based drug makers inked deals with President Donald Trump on Friday to voluntarily sell their medications for less as his administration pushes to link the nation's drug prices to cheaper ones abroad. Most favored nation drug pricing. The event included Merck, Bristol-Myers Squibb, Amgen, Gilead, GSK, Sanofi, Roche, Novartis. In exchange, the companies agreed to a 3-year grace period during which their production wouldn't face Trump's planned pharmaceutical-specific tariffs. They didn't voluntarily come. He said, you don't give our people the best price you can give in the world, and I'm going to put tariffs on you, and you're not going to be able to sell it here. That's what Donald Trump did for you, okay? As long as, let's see, among the most notable pledges on Friday is that Bristol-Myers Squibb will offer Eliquis, its blockbuster blood thinner and top prescribed product, to Medicaid for free. For free. They're going to donate it. We've been spending tons of dollars, billions of dollars on it. They're going to give it to us for free. The companies make up the majority of 17 drug makers Trump sent letters to in July, calling them to lower prices as part of his most favored nation policy. Johnson & Johnson, AbbVie, and Regenerative are the remaining companies among the largest that haven't signed drug price deals. And Trump said, yeah, they're going to be in next week, okay? They're going to be in next week. He also said something in his press conference. And folks, why am I never ask you to do something for yucks. I don't have time. You don't have time. I respect your time more than you will ever know, okay? So when I ask you to do something, I have good reason. I'm asking you to go to wethepeopleconvention.org, go to the articles and click on this article and watch the video of these executives telling you they never believed what they were doing could ever happen. They never believed they could. They say this. I'm paraphrasing. They will say it. You will hear their words. They say, I never believed that we as an industry, the pharmaceutical industry, could meet with government and the focus would be on the patient. You know why? Because if they would have met with the Biden administration would want to talk about how we're going to send you more Obamacare subsidies so you can give us more money to stay in power. Capiche? You understand? They're stunned. The patient, you are first. Because that evil Donald Trump who hates people, never does anything for the common man, is just self-interested. This belies that. You have to watch it and share it and shout it from the rooftops because everyone is going to win. And so here's a short clip from RFK Jr. where he literally calls this a miracle. A miracle. Listen up.
I would say this is a miracle, and I'm very grateful to all the CEOs who saw the sense in this, who understood the injustice and the unsustainability of the system, and who put public health, and particularly the public health of Americans, ahead of some of their other priorities. And all of them came to the table, and President Trump asked us to do three things. One, to deliver the lowest prices in the world and make this affordable for Americans. Number two, to do it in a way that we would not hurt innovation, that we would keep America as the incubator and the dominating force in innovation around the world. And three, to bring drug manufacturing home to this country. I can tell you by the end of this term, 95% of the drugs we will have MFN. In other words, Americans will be paying the lowest price in the world for 95% of the drugs. You talk about affordability, people are talking about affordability. Nobody has done anything for affordability greater than this. So I want to thank you, President Trump, for your leadership, for your vision, and for your relentless harassment of us to make sure this all got done. And I really want to just thank all of the CEOs, all these companies, for coming to the table in good faith, working out a very, very pragmatic agreement that allows them to continue to do the innovation that is going to save lives and alleviate suffering around the world, and do it in a way that is more fair to the American people. Thank you.
How's that? How's that for a powerful statement? This is going to save every one of you listening to this lots of money. And then you know what Trump did? Oh my gosh. So he's doing this, which RFK Jr. just called a miracle. And you will see these drug CEOs like just amazed at how Trump is changing the world, putting people first, not government, not politics, not business, health first. Oh my. Say it again. So it's a miracle. And it is. And then Trump, honest to God, Trump then says, well, as I'm watching this and as I'm seeing these CEOs and I'm seeing what we can do when we get together and say, you can make money, you can innovate, but we can treat people's health problems in a way they can afford it. Trump goes, I need to call in the health insurance companies. I need to call in Humana and Anthem and these guys. We need to have a talk about how the health insurance industry works, and we need to get them to tell us that they're going to lower prices. Oh, you know what? I switched to Fox Business after the speech. Health insurance company stocks were crashing, all of them. He said, I'll meet with them maybe next week or the week after New Year's, but not the second or third week. We're going to meet with them right away. Oh, baby. Oh, baby. Donald J. Trump, the greatest president in American history, the only president who's ever fought for you, for we the people, to make our lives better against all the deep state, all the big political forces, all the moneyed special interests. You want more proof? Okay, well, let's do some more proof. This story didn't get anywhere near enough coverage, okay? Why shouldn't Americans have the choice to buy a reliable new car for $12,000? You know, they covered some of it. You know, President Trump rolls back the Biden-era mileage standards for car companies because they were pushing electric vehicles and they were trying to destroy engine cars. And so they were raising the mileage standards that the companies had to meet to basically force you to have to buy an electric car you don't want. That's done. And Trump repealed that, and that was the story. But they didn't cover this part of the story. And this is an important part of the story. Microcars could be driving on your street near you. The affordability issue has also extended to the car market. At the time when the average price of a brand new automobile, now get this, in the United States, the average price of a brand new automobile is almost $50,000. The White House is seeking to offer motorists an affordable option. Japan may have inspired President Donald Trump's latest decision to allow U.S. manufacturers to produce tiny automobiles known as Kia cars. They're literally, and here's a picture of one that's a Honda, okay? They're literally $12,000. You know why they aren't in the United States yet? Because of regulation, because of all the air quality stuff and mileage standards and safety standards. You know what individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity means? I get to buy the car I want. Give me the best option. If it's a little less safe, if it's a little less energy efficient, whatever, give me the choice. Don't dictate to me as the left does constantly. That's the difference between a communist, socialist, Marxist country and a country of individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Donald Trump came up with this and told his transportation guy, get the regulations changed so they can start making these cars in the U.S. and you could buy one. Do you realize how many people that would help? That's what you call fighting to fix the economy. Did Joe Biden ever do any of that? No, he didn't. Nobody ever did. Nobody's done anything like this. And no one has the business acumen and the creativity. Donald Trump's mind is amazing. He's literally a genius, and I'm not just saying that, it's provable. He sees things differently. He fixes problems, and he sure knows how to make money and save money. But the most important thing is the border. Because why is that the most important thing? How did the left try to destroy America? You bring in 20 million illegals without any preparation, and what happens to housing? You run out of housing. You didn't build any more housing. You displaced Americans, and you raised rents and mortgages like crazy. If you deport 2.5 million of them, which we just did, oh, funny, mortgages rates are coming down, and there's the real estate business is picking up. Oh, funny how that works. When you bring in 20 million people who don't pay for health care but go to the emergency rooms to get free health care that you and I pay for, your premiums go up because the hospital's got to get it from somewhere, and they don't get it from the insurance companies, kids. They get it from you and I. That's the deal, right? When you bring in 20 million illegals, crime soars. Your cost for police goes up. Your cost for, insurance on your property, on your car. How many carjackings were happening in Washington, D.C. until Trump stopped it? Yeah. That's about the economy. That's why the border was the key. But we haven't talked enough about it. And so I got this clip from Tom Homan, and this guy is one of the greatest American heroes. My God, what this man has given for our nation, and what a job he's doing. But listen to this, because he puts it all in perspective.
It's always an honor for me to be in the Oval Office with the greatest president of my lifetime. Yes, I said it, and I meant it. I just got home last night. I toured the border in California, Arizona, and Texas. I did it in a four-wheel drive. I did it on the river. I did it from the air. Hundreds upon hundreds of miles of border. I didn't see one illegal alien. Not a single one. I've done this since 1984. I worked for 6 different presidents. No one's done more than President Trump. What he has done is gave us the most secure border in the history of this nation. Hard to stop. I went to hundreds of miles of border and didn't see one illegal alien. Incredible, considering the Biden administration, we had 10, 12,000 a day, most released in the United States. I'm proud to be with these patriots behind me. I'm already proud to be in the Oval Office of the President, but being with these heroes, I met some of these soldiers down on the border, And actually, a shout out to Fort Drum, New York. We got some 10th Mountain Division here, so at least Stefanik, Claudia Tenney, we all love Fort Drum and the 10th Mountain. So look, this is a game changer. I want to make something perfectly clear, because we get attacked all the time being inhumane. The Biden administration is much more humane. It's a bunch of crap. Because there's been studies done that 31% of women that make that journey through the cartels get sexually assaulted. They get raped. And not just the women, children too. I've done numerous investigations in that. Sex trafficking was at historic highs with that open border. Fentanyl, historic highs that killed 250,000 Americans. No inspector terrorists that came across the border. Record, historic. What happened under the Biden administration was the most inhumane thing I've seen in my lifetime. Now that the border is 96% decline, 96% less people are coming, how many women aren't being raped? How many children aren't dying making that journey? How many women and children aren't being sex trafficked into this country every day? How many known suspected terrorists aren't just walking across that border? President Trump and this administration is saving thousands of lives every month. Hard stop. That's just a stone cold fact. I'm just proud to be a part of this. I work with Steve Miller every day. Steve Miller is one of the most brilliant people I've met in my entire life. President Trump brought together one hell of a team here, and the success proves. We all working together, one team, one fight. We're not done yet. We're going to keep going, and I guarantee you we're going to continue saving thousands and thousands of lives. Secure border means strong national security. Secure border saves lives.
Yeah. How's that? Will you share that? Will you share that video? I think you need to, because that's what it's really all about. What you're seeing, what you're part of, what you did, what you and I fought for and made happen last year was usher in the greatest administration in our lifetimes, maybe ever. The most talented group of people ever to serve you and I in government. And it's all you hear is, they suck, they're terrible, nothing's good. Don't let them win the narrative war. And oh yeah, the liars who told you they're all about women, on all the dumb, indoctrinated, college-indoctrinated women who vote for Mandami and vote for the Democrats, who are so, they want to virtue signal to you that they're for women's rights. Yeah, they got blood on their hands. They sanctioned the rape and murder of tens of thousands of women on that border and said nothing. Call them out on it. Make it clear. What a stain on our country. And again, when is someone going to be held accountable? I'm glad we've closed the border. I'm glad we showed it can work without any legislation. I want the people who were running the illegal invasion arrested and charged with sedition or treason. I don't care. We cannot rest until those people are in prison and everyone knows you can never even think of doing this again. That's how you protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Okay, so now that's the end. I think I convinced you that the economy isn't as bad as they say, and Trump is doing things no one imagined to help you. And believe me, 2026 is going to be even better, and that's what Bessent and those guys are out talking about. That's coming, all right? It's coming. But then we had a setback, and this was a surprise to me. Dan Bongino announces he is leaving the FBI at the end of the year. Bongino posted his farewell message on X on Wednesday, coming soon after President Trump hinted at his departure and comments he made on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews. I will be leaving my position with the FBI in January, Bongino said. I want to thank President Trump, AG Bondi, Director Patel for the opportunity to serve with purpose. Most importantly, I want to thank you, my fellow Americans, for the privilege to serve you. God bless America and all those who defend her, said Bongino. I wrote on X, and you can follow me on X at TomZWTPC, and that's the same on most of the other ones. I wrote this. This is a surprise to a lot of us because we know how committed Dan was to bringing justice to those who have tried to destroy our nation, who overthrew our duly elected government and stole the 2020 election. Does this mean that it can't be done? That no one will be brought to justice? Very concerning. We will be glad to have him back leading the fight to win in 2026 through his podcast. Whoa. Will that first podcast have an audience? Oh, baby. It will be interesting to see what he can disclose and can't disclose once it starts up again. So this is concerning to me. If we can't, and you guys criticize Patel and Bondi and everybody, you criticize the whole Trump team because you're just not satisfied with what they're doing, and I get it, and I'm the one just said to you 30 seconds ago, when are some people going to be arrested? But if our best can't do it, who can? Seriously. Who is up to this if these guys aren't? Because we ain't got anybody else. You got anybody else? You hiding back there? You got somebody? I ain't got anybody. And so what do we see? As he's making this announcement, we get drip, 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 more news. New memo shows how corruption probe in Clinton Foundation was killed. We were told no by FBI HQ. What a surprise, right? Drip, drip, drip. A newly declassified timeline exposes how the FBI investigation on the Clinton Foundation was hamstrung by DOJ leaders, while the inquiry into Trump-Russia collusion hoax marched forward, was turbocharged, right? And again, we said it then, we knew it then. Who did anything about it? Did Mitch McConnell? Did John McCain? Did Paul Ryan? Did any of the Rhino Republicans? Did any of them do anything? No. A top Republican senator has provided Just the News a timeline written by the FBI investigators laying out the repeated political obstruction those agents faced from their own bosses in the Justice Department during the 2016 election and beyond, as they probed whether Hillary Clinton engaged in a pay-to-play corruption scheme involving her family foundation. Whether she engaged? There's no doubt she engaged. Hundreds of millions of dollars from foreign adversaries were coming into the Clinton Foundation to buy favors on the hope that she would be the president. Treason. And then Donald Trump, we elect him, and he goes, "Oh, I'm not gonna go after Hillary Clinton. They're good people. I went to Chelsea's wedding." After we chanted, "Lock her up," at every frickin' rally leading up to President Trump's election. Yeah, he's learned his lesson, I think. He ain't acting that way now, but let's go after these people. And they are, they're bringing, the Clintons are having to come in and testify about Epstein, and they don't want to do it. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer is escalating pressure on Bill and Hillary Clinton, setting firm January deposition dates and warning that failure to appear will trigger immediate contempt of Congress proceedings. The Kentucky Republican's hardball tactics signal his determination to obtain sworn testimony from the power couple regarding their relationship with convicted sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. In a letter sent Monday evening to the Clintons' attorney, Comer rescheduled Bill Clinton's deposition to January 13th and Hillary's to January 14th after the former president cited a funeral conflict for his original date. The chairman made clear that these dates are not negotiable and the Clintons will face consequences if they continue evading congressional oversight. We're going to hold them in contempt if he doesn't show up for his deposition. Well, let's see that happen. But how about a deposition about the Clinton Foundation? Statute of limitations. No. That's not, we're not buying that crap. It's a seditious conspiracy that's gone on since Obama, and it's still in play, and it's still happening today, and therefore there is no statute of limitations. And then, so then you just keep going, checking through the list, right? This story comes out. FBI told the DOJ there was no probable cause for the Mar-a-Lago raid. What a surprise. No probable cause. FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed Tuesday that FBI officials flagged probable cause concerns with the Department of Justice in the weeks leading up to the FBI raid targeting President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago property to recover quote-unquote classified documents in 2022. In response to a reporter's statement on X that the FBI didn't believe it had probable cause to search Trump's Florida property, Kash Patel responded, "It's true. We just turned over documents to Capitol Hill to be made public showing the FBI and DOJ did not have probable cause." And if you go to that story on our website, you'll see some really interesting stuff from a guy called the Muse who writes on X and Substack about the whole thing about use of force in that raid and how that was not right. The whole thing was wrong, okay? And then, oh yeah, this comes out, and you're going to be shocked by this. New emails show the Biden White House coordinated directly with the DOJ to get them to ransack Mar-a-Lago. It's not like you didn't know or have these suspicions. There are plenty of other instances where the Biden Justice Department went after enemies of the former president, like sicking FBI agents on those who posted anti-Biden memes. Remember that guy they put in prison? The overzealous prosecution directed towards some J6 protesters and the crusade against pro-life activists. So, no, sorry, new emails reporting that half-brain dead but ever so vindictive Joe Biden coordinated directly with then Attorney General Merrick Garland and the National Archives and Records Administration to ransack Mar-a-Lago does not shock me, but it does reinforce the narrative that the Biden administration was rogue, corrupt, and laughably incompetent, but they were criminals. They were overthrowing the government. They were trying to lock up the former president who they stole the office from so he could never run again. The Biden White House was coordinating with the Department of Justice about the FBI search for classified documents as Trump's Mar-a-Lago residence before taking their conversation offline, according to Attorney General Pam Boendi's former chief of staff, Chad Mizell. Mizell told the Post in an exclusive interview Wednesday that he reviewed smoking gun emails between officials in former President Joe Biden's White House counsel's office, Merrick Garland's DOJ, and the National Archives in the months before the execution of the search warrant. He says, quote, "We have concrete evidence that Biden's White House was very much involved with the most unprecedented, unjust, and improper law enforcement act really in the history of our country, which is to use the FBI to raid a home of a political rival and former president for political purposes." Again, where are the arrests? Who are the people in Garland's office and in the White House who did this, and why aren't they being charged? Simple ask. That's the question. And then this little gem comes out. Oh yeah, President Trump is a conspiracy theorist, said he won the election in 2020 and there was election fraud, and he called the Attorney General of Raffensperger from Georgia and said, find me 14,000 votes. And the left spins that and says Trump tried to get them to cheat, to steal the election. He never said that. That's another lie. What did Trump say in that phone call? We know they're cheating. You need to look at these ballots because they're not real, and I'm only losing by like 11,000 votes. So what comes out this week? Oh, Shazam! Fulton County, Georgia. We don't dispute 315,000 votes lacking poll workers' signatures were counted in 2020 election. 315,000 votes. Earlier this month, Fulton County admitted that approximately 315,000 early votes for the 2020 election were illegally certified, but were nonetheless still included in the final results of that election. The admission came on a December 9th hearing before the Georgia State Election Board, stemming from a challenge filed by David Cross, a local elections integrity activist. The bottom line is they admitted it. And now the DOJ has sued to get those ballots. And you know what I want? I want them counted. I want to see whether it was, just like the Georgia election, 51% for Biden and 49% for Trump, or was it 90% for Biden? Keep digging. It ain't over. I know you're frustrated. We have not even begun to start talking about the stolen elections in 2020. That's coming in 2026, okay? We just, we've covered a lot, But, we ain't got there yet, folks. A lot more to come. Okay? So then, this week, the big story that they wanted to beat you to death on was Obamacare, subsidies, and how cruel it would be if people's premiums went up if we don't send billions of dollars to insurance companies to not provide any health care, to keep the price of health care down for 21 million Obamacare recipients. It's a scam. It shouldn't happen. And so you guys were working hard, right? We put this out this week, signed the petition, tell Congress no to ending Obamacare subsidies, and thousands of our members. I sent out a text, and if you don't get our texts or our emails, go to wethepeopleconvention.org. Right on the front page, it says, put in your contact information so we can contact you to act when things have to happen in a timely manner. And you did. And this is Tea Party Patriots put this together. They promoted it. All of their affiliates promoted it. We promoted it. Just our members, literally thousands of you, clicked on that text message, went to our website, and it's also put on emails, and then you contacted the House, and they did it. They passed the bill without the Obamacare subsidies. That's good. That's what you asked them to do. That's why you watch this podcast. That's why we're not just talk, we're action. We ask you to do things in this podcast to protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. Cutting off Obamacare subsidies does that. The House of Representatives on December 17th passed a health care reform bill amid an intra-party debate on whether to extend the expiring enhanced premium tax credits offered in the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, which is not affordable. The Lower Health Care Premiums for All Americans Act aims to lower health insurance premiums in both the Affordable Care Act exchanges and the general market. And the bill passed 216 to 211 and now goes to the Senate, okay? Now, this is what I'm being told, and this is what you need to understand. In the dead of night, over this holiday, when you're busy having, a Christmas, enjoying your grandkids and your children, and being with family and friends, what I'm being told is the Senate is going to reject this bill. They're going to pass a bill that's going to kick the can down the road, give the Dems what they want. Give the Dems what they want, the health care premiums, which I've documented for you, do what? The insurance companies give millions of that money to Democratic candidates in 2026. That's what they'll do with the money. And the dumbass Republicans are going to approve it because they don't want to be blamed for people's premiums going up. A small percentage of Americans' premiums will go up. They don't want to be blamed. They're going to pass it. The House is going to approve it like on December 31st, and Trump's going to sign it? You going to let that happen? Or are you going to be all over this issue? Are you going to be calling your senator and congressman and writing to Donald Trump at whitehouse.gov and saying, don't you dare, don't even think about it? How's that for an ask over the holiday? How about that? Because the question I have is, what are the freaking Republicans afraid of? What are they afraid of? Well, I mean it. This story, Democratic Party is in complete collapse, poll shows. Democrats are sinking like a stone, and the new Quinnipiac poll makes it official. Their congressional approval rating has hit a historic low of just 18%. The approval rating, excuse me, of Democrats is down from 30% to 20 to 18, with a brutal 73% disapproval rating. That's the worst number Quinnipiac has recorded since they started asking the question back in 2009. The real kickers? Democrats are turning on their own party. Only 42% of Democrats approve of how their representatives in Congress are performing, while 48% disapprove. Back in October, that number was 58% approved and 36% disapproval. That's a 28% nosedive in 2 months of the Democrats being mad because the lunatic Democrats in Congress aren't doing enough to destroy our nation, apparently. Okay? But it's not just Democrats that are against them. Here's that CNN clip about this.
How are voters feeling about Democrats right now?
Yeah, I mean, Democrats in the minds of the American public are lower than the Dead Sea. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look. The net approval rating for Democrats in Congress, you said it, Kate Baldwin, the lowest ever. Look at this. Overall, they are 55 points underwater. Their approval rating is south of 20%. It's even worse when you look at independents. Look at this. Negative 61 points. That means that their approval rating is 61 points lower than their disapproval rating. Quinnipiac has been polling this question for the better part of the 21st century. They have never found Democrats, at least those in Congress, in worse shape than they are right now.
How do you reconcile that with Republicans saying they should extend the Medicare subsidies? How do you reconcile that with these bogus polls saying that 61% of Americans disapprove of how Trump is running the economy? What are the Republicans afraid of? Oh, I'm in a swing district, and if I don't vote for these subsidies, I might not get Democrats to vote for you? You think they're going to vote for you anyway? You could give them the money directly as a Republican congressman, and they're still going to vote against you, and yet you're going to screw all of us? Your supporters are based President Trump by voting to extend the subsidies 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Shut up! Call them. Scream at them. And say, wake up! What are you afraid of? And then why do the independents, remember, Republicans don't like Democrats, and if 61% of independents aren't supporting them, then who are they supporting? They're supporting MAGA, Republicans, Trump. Why? Because what are the Democrats, quote unquote, Marxist socialists running on? Free stuff like Mandami. What is their policy? Their policy is let's fight to keep these illegals in our country who are destroying your job, your rent, your schools, your medical care. Who's for that? They're fighting for terrorists. They're fighting for pro-Hamas, people that hate Israel and hate America. What are they running on? And what do they have as candidates? Here, let me just give you an example. Let me just give you this example. This is amazing. The height of hypocrisy. Wes Moore, the Maryland governor, who's supposed to be a presidential candidate coming up, filmed a campaign ad praising Maryland's public schools inside his kid's elite private school. The quote here is, only someone who's a complete idiot would do this, said former Larry Hogan communications director Doug Mayer. So what is this about? Okay? Maryland, this is a TV commercial. Maryland is home to some of the nation's best public schools, don't you know? But also some of its most neglected. Then gubernatorial candidate Wes Moore said in a 2020 campaign ad, we can't settle for that. We must make sure that every Maryland student gets that fair shot to succeed, the same one that I got. Oh yeah? It was filmed in a K-8 school where middle school tuition is $33,000 a year. Is, according to its website, a nurturing space where students and families feel valued and supported. Both sources said the wooden lockers on the behind the scene when he's recording this are from that school. The Moore campaign confirmed that he filmed the ad in this private school that he sends his kids to tell the dumbass Dems in Maryland that he's for public education, don't you know? Yeah, that's who they run. He's supposed to be a leading candidate for president. And he's a total fraud. He's a liar. Who in the Democratic Party says the truth about anything? I think it's a pretty fair question. They called Donald Trump a liar, and he sure as hell does exaggerate. Okay, and maybe that's my bias, and maybe he does lie about some things, but man, he tells way more truth than any of them. Way more truth. So just share that, because what are we afraid of? This is why we can win the war in 2026, because they got nothing. They're already at 18%. Your and my job is to make it 0. Your and my job is not to keep the House, hold the House, keep the Senate. No. Your and my job is to win 60 House seats, more than we've got. Your and my job is to get to 60 or more senators to win the war. Okay? All right, I'm going to wrap up this half of the podcast with this last story, because I was interested in this, and I think you will be too. Treasury Secretary gives IRS details on new Trump accounts. Okay, how is this going to work? So it's in the news because I talked to you about the guy, the Dell family that gave $6.2 billion to add to the Trump accounts, and another guy just stepped up in Rhode Island, I think, to help add to that in just that state. But anyway, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent provided more details on the administration-backed Trump accounts program that allows investments to be made for U.S. children. Bessent said parents whose children are born in this year, 2025, and the next 4 years will enroll in the program by selecting on a newly created IRS form when they file their taxes. The form will be on a form. The form is going to be called 4547. I mean, Trump never misses a trick, but boy, I just kind of, that starts to rub me the wrong way. To claim the investment, most families will nearly need to check a box on Form 4547, he said, referring to the new IRS form. The accounts will be provided to U.S. children born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028. They will give an initial $1,000 to be invested in a fund, and up to $5,000 can be put into the account each year by parents, and I believe that's tax-free. Bessent then said the initial 1,000 deposit accounts will make young Americans wealthy because the Standard & Poor's has grown at a rate of 10.5% per year on average since the 1950s. A single 1,000 deposit into a Trump account at birth will grow to nearly $674,000 by the age of retirement, he said. Yeah, well, what's that's going to be worth after inflation? I don't know, but it's still a lot better than I ever got or you ever got. Trump accounts are the president's gift to the American people. They represent perhaps the most groundbreaking policy innovation of modern times. It certainly is an innovation. They are shaped by a simple vision. Every American is a shareholder. When every American owns a share of the most powerful economy on earth, every American will benefit from our nation's growth. Capitalism, getting them to participate in what capitalism is. The Treasury has not yet launched the new accounts. The Senate noted they would go into effect on July 4th, 2026, our 250th anniversary. Now, here's my problem. That's great, but President Trump, you didn't give the gift. We gave the gift, because you know why? That money's borrowed. Where's the offset for this? I think it's a great idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for it. And we've got grandchildren who are going to benefit, okay? I'm for that. But we're supposed to be cutting spending. The least you could do is take some of the money from USAID that you saved or from other cuts to fund this. If we just borrowed this money, we're borrowing the money now that those same kids who get it are going to have to pay it back later. No. Where's the offset? That's where you and I have to hold President Trump and his administration accountable. It's great PR and all that's good, but no, where's the offset? Okay? But at least now you know how they work, and you can share that story with people who are wondering, how do I get my money? Because that's what everybody wants to know. How do I get my money? All right, we're going to take a short break here at the end here of the first half of the show. I hope you've enjoyed the show. I hope you will share it. I hope you will act on it. I hope you will be all over your congressmen and senators not to give the Dems subsidies. No, hard no. That's what you're going to do during the holiday. You're not going to be fooled. You're not going to be lied to. You're not going to be scammed. You're going to fight to protect and defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. I'm going to take a short break. We'll be back after these messages. You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast, and my name is Tom Zawistowski, and we're sure glad you joined us. The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button. And if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. What, something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. If you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share, this, whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site, and that you get more people to look at it. Because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday. So if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday. And in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot. Damn. Okay, thank you for being with us. We hope you enjoyed the first half of the podcast. We certainly thank those of you who donate to the We the People Convention. And if you can do so, we would appreciate it if you go to wethepeopleconvention.org and donate. If you need to have a tax-deductible donation, I would ask you to go to True to the Vote. Catherine Engelbrecht has got an amazing program for 2026. They are loaded for bear, and they are going to really help keep our elections clean this year. Go to Tea Party Patriots Action. Jenny Beth and those guys do a great job. You can donate. And go to Turning Point. I actually had someone say to me this week that they used to support Turning Point, but now there's this negative stuff in there, and they're not sure they're gonna. I'm like, what are you talking about? Turning Point is the most important organization as far as grassroots structure and ability to execute that we've got. Absolutely donate to Turning Point. So, again, if you're looking to help, if you have the financial ability to do so, please do so. Okay? It's really, really important. We got a lot going in 2026, and we're going to have to be all in. And I know you've heard that before and all that, but I mean it. I'm not going to blow smoke up your skirt. I'm going to tell you the truth. The left is desperate. They will start a war. They will bring up more COVID or some disease. They're going to do anything. We have to be ready to fight to win. And that's going to take everything you and I have. But I assure you, when we win next November, we're going to have won the war. Things will change from that point forward. If we lose, it's all bets off, kid. And I got news for you. This podcast won't be around and I'll be in prison. So that's the stakes. Again, remember, Swalwell and Booker and these guys are saying, oh, we're gonna lock up the ICE agents. We're gonna lock up all the Trump administration. If we win, we're going to impeach Trump. Okay? They say it out loud. Believe them. They mean it. Because their goal is the destruction of America, not to take it over and make it better or use our ideas versus Trump's. They don't have any ideas except let the Chinese rule the world. That's their idea. Okay? That's what you and I are fighting, and we're going to win. All right? And we're literally fighting, and this next story, will prove that. Last week, it was a terrible weekend. We had the shooting at Brown University. We had 2 U.S. soldiers killed by ISIS in Syria. We had the horrific events in Australia, where Palestinians, pro-Hamas people killed Jews with rifles on the beach. It was terrible, all right? And then President Trump said, you kill our soldiers, you will pay. Yeah? Well, they paid last night. U.S. strikes ISIS targets in Syria in response to killing of Americans. U.S. forces launched massive strike on ISIS terrorist groups, infrastructure, and weapon sites in Syria on December 19th, according to the U.S. Central Command. This is not the beginning of a war. It is a declaration of vengeance, War Secretary Pete Hegseth wrote on X on Friday. The United States of America, under President Trump's leadership, will never hesitate or never relent to defend our people. Operation Hawkeye Strike, which is directed by Trump, struck more than 70 targets at multiple locations starting at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, the Pentagon confirmed. The Pentagon shared that fighter jets, attack helicopters, and artillery were used in the center of Syria. The operation employed more than 100 precision munitions, which are sometimes referred to as smart bombs, which use systems to direct a weapon to their grounded targets. Friday's attack was in response to the December 13th ambush last Saturday by a lone ISIS gunman who killed 2 U.S. Army soldiers and civilian interpreter and wounded 3 in Palmyra, Syria, U.S. Central Command said. Those 2 soldiers were brought back to the U.S. this week, and President Trump went to meet the plane and meet their families and accept their caskets. And so that's peace through strength. That's what you got to do. I'm sure that strike, 70 locations, 100 missiles, killed a lot more than 2 people. That's for sure. So speaking of war, this story came out. Trump orders blockade of Venezuelan oil tankers. And I posted this story at WeThePeopleConvention.org that said, are we at war with Venezuela? A blockade is a serious thing, guys. What is that? And I, quite frankly, when President Trump said he was going to address the nation, I thought that he should go and explain what the heck is going on in Venezuela. Now, you guys who watch this podcast know this is not just about Venezuela. Remember we stopped the oil tanker last week. Now we're embargoing the whole country so they can't get these oil tankers out. Well, why was that? Because it was helping Iran. It was overcoming the sanctions against Iranian oil. They were having these tankers meet mid-ocean and transfer fuel, and then it goes to China or goes to help some terrorist group. This is not about Venezuela, and I wanted President Trump to address the nation and explain that it's not about just Venezuela. Yes, it's about drug trafficking, and they blew up some more boats. And yes, we're going to throw Maduro out, but it's a lot more than that. So go to our website at wethepeopleconvention.org and kind of read what we put on here. President Donald Trump increased pressure on Venezuelan government Tuesday by designating its regime a foreign terrorist organization and ordering a complete and total blockade of oil tankers moving in and out of Venezuela. The action comes after the U.S. issued new sanctions on the country's oil industry last week and on members of Venezuelan Nicolas Maduro's family. The U.S. has been conducting military strikes against boats from South American country that allegedly are carrying drugs, okay? But now he's talking about a land attack. All right? And Trump, he posted this on X, and it's on our website page, okay? But this is what Trump said, and it's like, whoa. Venezuela is completely surrounded by the largest armada ever assembled in the history of South America. It will only get bigger, and the shock to them will be like nothing they have ever seen before. Until such time, now get this, as they return to the United States of America, all the oil, land, and other assets they have previously stole from us, the illegitimate Maduro regime is using oil from these stolen oil fields to finance themselves, drug terrorism, human trafficking, murder, and kidnapping. For the theft of our assets and many other reasons, including terrorism, drug smuggling, and human trafficking, the Venezuelan regime has been designated a foreign terrorist organization. Therefore, I am ordering today a total and complete blockade of all sanctioned oil tankers going in and out of Venezuela. The illegal aliens and criminals with the Maduro regime have sent into the United States during the week and that Biden administration are being returned to Venezuela at a rapid pace. So in the illegal aliens that Maduro sent to the United States, and there's evidence of that. I mean, they literally funded NGOs to bring in Venezuelan criminals and gang members in the United States. That's a fact, okay? Are being returned to Venezuela at a rapid pace. America will not allow them to be in our country to harm our people. And we need them to return all the assets of which that they've taken from the United States immediately. What is he talking about? Land that they took from us. And oil, Venezuela has one of the biggest oil reserves in the world, and they used to supply oil to the United States before fracking and stuff. And then they privatized, they took over, they stopped being a capitalist country when they were one of the richest countries in the world, and they became Marxist, and they took over, the government took over the oil wells. And you know what happened? It all blew up. They couldn't operate them. And so I'm not sure what he wants them to give back, but I sure would like an explanation, and I would sure like more Americans to understand what he's talking about, because it's about as clear as mud. Okay, not that I'm against what he's doing, but we need to understand what's the goal here. All right, what are we doing? I understand that we're trying to clean up South America after the Bidens and the Obamas let the Chinese come in and the Russians and the Iranians, and we're trying to drive them out, the new Monroe Doctrine. But, we need some clarification of this stuff. So then he did this, which is, I think, really good. No bomb does what this is doing. Trump classifies fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. Wow. Okay, wow. President Donald Trump on Monday announced the classification of illicit fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, opening the door for federal government to go even harder against drug cartels. Trump signed the executive order enhancing penalties for fentanyl trafficking and tasking the Department of War with countering the cartels producing the lethal narcotic. No bomb does what this is doing, Trump said. 200,000 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of, so we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction. Trump's former acting drug enforcement administrator, Derek Maltz, told the Daily Wire that the designation has been a long time coming and that it will shut down the cartel's financing at a new level. He said it will allow the Department of War to use all capabilities, authorities, and expertise to up the game at a new level. The designation will also open the door for the federal government to take further action when it comes to other and even more deadly drugs that have emerged in the illicit market. So that was good. Fentanyl is a weapon of mass destruction, and for decades, our politicians who don't give a damn about the citizens have just let it go on. Oh, and then the left, the Democrats, oh yeah, let's let these drug traffickers out of jail because it's really not a violent crime like murder, right? And so they just killing our people willy-nilly and not prosecuting the drug cartels and the drug gangs and the drug dealers. And now Trump's doing something about it. That's really good, and it's way overdue, and he's right. It's like Tom Homan said, we're saving thousands of lives a day. Donald Trump is saving lives, and the left is fighting him, and that's why only 18% of the people support them, and it should be 0. Then Trump did this. Trump expands medical marijuana and CBD research, orders DOJ to expedite cannabis reclassification. We were totally against this. And Donald Trump is outright wrong. President Trump signed an executive order on Thursday to clear the way for making marijuana a Schedule III drug, which brings along reforms in how the federal government regulates the substance. The order means the drug will no longer be classified as a Schedule I drug, which is at the same level as heroin, according to CNBC. This does not make it legal nationwide, but it allows for more research and enables marijuana sellers in states where it's legal to take advantage of tax write-offs at the federal level. Oh yeah, let's give the marijuana industry tax write-offs. There's a good idea. Today, I'm pleased to announce I will be signing an executive order to reschedule marijuana from Schedule I to Schedule III. He said, we have people begging me to do this. People that are in great pain. For decades, this action has been requested by American patients suffering from extreme pain, incurable diseases, aggressive cancers, seizure disorders, neurological problems, and more, including numerous veterans with service-related injuries and older Americans who live with chronic medical problems that severely degrade their quality of life, he continued. The president stressed that the order does not mean that recreational marijuana is legal nationwide. He was played. There is 0 evidence of medical marijuana being worth a damn. That was a scam that was used by the marijuana industry to get legit. And it worked because dumb people in 26 states made it legal. But if you go to our website and just search on a little eyeglass and say marijuana, you'll get stories like this. The safe marijuana scam is being exposed. Marijuana is not harmless. The opposite is true, and the evidence keeps growing. As cannabis legalization spreads, mounting research reveals alarming health impacts while promised benefits fail to materialize. As drug advocates push marijuana legalization over the last 15 years, they portrayed the drug as harmless, a mild intoxicant with few side effects. Cannabis, the term scientists prefer to marijuana, might even have medical value, advocates said. The truth is the opposite. Even as states from Maine to California have legalized cannabis, researchers have published paper after paper showing its risks, particularly to heavy and daily users. I do not mean the munchies or falling asleep on the couch. Powerful evidence links the drug to heart attacks, strokes, severe mental illness, and even suicides. And maybe murders, as Dr. Drew tells Dr. Laura in this video from last night's show.
I want to first talk about the schizophrenia that we've learned about, because you've talked about this before, that marijuana use at a young age can also trigger schizophrenia if used early and often, and sometimes later in life. Thoughts here tonight?
And so can hallucinogens, and he was well known to have been doing all of that at one time. It really may not technically even be schizophrenia. It may be just some sort of chronic illness, psychotic illness from all the brain injury of the drug. So to call it schizophrenia, to suddenly arrive at that diagnosis later, it's suspect. That usually comes on age 18 to 22. But it does bring up the issue of co-occurring disorders and addiction. It just makes things that much more difficult. And psychotic illness these days is routine, both from the cannabis and from the methamphetamine.
Routine. Yeah. It happens all the time, and it's documented. President Trump got hustled. Now, this is one of his weaknesses, right? Again, I'm not a Trump hater, but we're adults. We're allowed to criticize each other. You're allowed to criticize me, all right? Feel free. Info at wethepeopleconvention.org. Info at wethepeopleconvention.org. President Trump got hustled by the marijuana industry. They made donations. They got in his office. They fed him this line of crap. They brought in the people who said, oh, I take this all the time and it helps me. Didn't bring in the experts to say, where's the evidence against it? Okay? He got hustled by the crypto guys. He's getting hustled by the AI guys. All right? It's just a weakness he has. He likes bright people with big ideas, and then he buys into things he shouldn't. I asked you, and we did, write to him and say, don't do this. Lots of conservative groups said that. Don't do this. He did it anyway. That's not good. Share with your children and everyone you know the article I just showed you. Go to wethepeopleconvention.org, search on marijuana, and share the documentation, the medical evidence that shows marijuana is not harmless. It's dangerous. You got to fight the president on this. Speaking of fighting, I reported last week that President Trump, in the middle of all the stuff he's doing, he does so many little things to help common Americans. It's amazing. And I said last week he was going to take on Mexico because Texas farmers, cattle ranchers weren't getting enough water. And look what happened. Shazam! Mexico agrees to uphold treaty obligations, provide water to Rio Grande Valley. Okay? Mexico has agreed to release water to Rio Grande Valley to fulfill its part of a 1944 water treaty after years of failing to deliver when Biden did nothing about it. No one did anything about it. The farmers, the ranchers did not have enough water for 5 years, and Trump said, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm going to put a 5% tariff on Mexico if you don't do it. Okay? Secretary of Agriculture Brooke Rollins made the announcement late last week following years of state and federal officials calling for Mexico to uphold its part of the deal. Prior to the announcement, President Trump had called out Mexico on social media for not upholding the deal. He addressed the havoc and economic losses it's caused for the farmers and ranchers in the Rio Grande Valley. Although Mexico has delivered more water in the last year than previous four combined, the country is still falling short of its treaty requirements. In a social media post, Trump demanded that Mexico release 200,000 acre-feet of water by the end of the year or face a 5% tariff. A few days later, Secretary Rollins announced Mexico agreed to comply with the treaty and to send the water to repay the previous year's deficit. President Trump continues to put the American farmer first and is finally holding our international partners accountable to their obligations and commitments. Once again, America is being treated fairly. The delivery of 202,000 acre-feet of water by Mexico is set to begin this week. That's making America great, okay? Speaking of Trump, taking action and fighting, Trump sues the BBC for $10 billion over misleading January 6th edits. And he should have, and we're glad he did, and he's going to win. President Trump on Monday evening filed a lawsuit against the British Broadcasting Corporation seeking $10 billion in restitution for alleged defamation in a news special that aired last year. Oh, it didn't just air last year. It aired right before the election. And a lot of U.S. intellectuals watched the BBC. They tried to interfere in our election by editing a video of January 6th where they took out a 54-minute section of his speech to make it look like he called for violence. Okay? Totally bullcrap. 3 of the BBC's top people have had to resign already. They better get their checkbook out because the British people, because BBC is funded by the British people, are going to pay Donald Trump personally $10 billion. The 33-page legal filing accused the BBC of making a false, defamatory, deceptive, disparaging, inflammatory, and malicious depiction of President Trump. that was fabricated and aired by the defendants 1 week before the 2024 presidential election in a brazen attempt to interfere in and influence the election's outcome to President Donald Trump's detriment. Fact, baby. Cannot deny that. The BBC aired an episode titled Trump, A Second Chance, on October 28th, 1 week before the election. The suit claims that in its episode produced by Panorama, the BBC intentionally and maliciously sought to fully mislead its viewers by splicing together clips of remarks that Trump made ahead of January 6th Capitol breach. Okay? It asked for $10 billion in damage, citing the value of Trump's personal brand and the injury to President Trump's business and personal reputation inflicted by these defendants and their efforts to falsely, maliciously, and defamatorily portray President Trump as a violent insurrectionist. He's got them dead to rights, and he's going to win. He's going to win, and that's a good thing. This is another good thing financially for President Trump. Fusion deal. Why Trump media is merging with TAE Technologies. This was bizarre, and I watched this area. Trump's social media just merged with a nuclear fusion reactor company. Whoa. President Donald Trump's social media company will provide the capital needed to bring TAE Technologies' first fusion power plant online in the United States by 2031, TAO CEO Michael Bunderbar told CNBC on Thursday. He spoke shortly after his privately held company and Trump Media and Technology Group acknowledged plans for an all-stock merger valued at more than $6 billion. The CEO said the deal would combine Trump Media's fortress balance sheet with TAE's technology. And basically, fusion, nuclear fusion, which is different than fission, okay, is really the holy grail of nuclear energy. It produces more energy with less chance of nuclear waste issues and things like that. And it would be the answer for our whole energy system. And they're forcing, because of the AI boom and the data centers, to try to bring these things online. And Trump just invested in it, and Truth Social stock went up for the first time. It's been down, 52% throughout the year, and it rose like 8% on this news. So, wow, that was good news for the Trumps again. And those of you that own Trump Media stock, I know you've suffered. You supported the president, and your stock's probably underwater. But that should be encouraging. Wow, this was not encouraging. This was really discouraging, and I'm still trying to process it. Late last night, I get a message saying that Elise Stefanik suddenly drops New York governor bid and then won't seek re-election to Congress. What? What the heck? GOP Representative Elise Stefanik from New York unexpectedly dropped her bid to become New York's next governor Friday, and also said she would not be seeking re-election for Congress. So this is another House seat that we're going to have to fill. The high-profile New York Republican congresswoman said she wanted to avoid a potentially bruising and costly gubernatorial primary, clearing the way for Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman to become the frontrunner for the party's nomination. The jarring move shocked Stefanik's allies, as the North Country rep had already held the endorsement of almost every one of the 62 county committee chairs in New York, and publicly attacked Blakeman immediately after he formally entered the race last week. While spending special time with my family this Christmas season, I have made the decision to suspend my campaign for governor and will not seek re-election to Congress. I did not come to this decision lightly for our family. Now, she was leading the race to be the New York governor, a Republican, and she's dropping out. While we would have overwhelmingly won this primary, it is not an effective use of our time or generous resources to spend the first half of next year in an unnecessary and protracted Republican primary, especially in a challenging state like New York. What's this about? This is Marjorie Taylor Greene 2.0. Marjorie Taylor Greene dropped out because Trump said he wouldn't endorse her and was going to endorse her opponent. Now Trump talked up this person. She's been in the headlines. She's been a superstar, but Trump didn't endorse her, and now he's going to endorse this Nassau County guy. Trump's behind this. Why? I don't like this. I don't like this. And so I don't know the full story. That will come out. But man, that was a shocker last night. This was good news because we've been wondering about this. Senate approves a tranche of 97 nominees amid continued obstruction of Trump's picks. We've been talking about this. The Republicans, Thune and those guys, have not been getting Trump's appointees through. They've had to do it, these big, bulky things. They did like 100 and some in September or whatever, and now they had done none, and now there's 97. The U.S. Senate on Thursday evening approved a tranche of 97 of President Trump's nominees for executive branch positions, as hundreds of more await confirmation. The 53-43 vote, the Senate gave the green light to the resolution authorizing the confirmation of these nominees together as a group, marking the third slate of nominees approved through such a measure, which never has to happen before, but only because Trump is president. The many nominees include in the resolution are lower profile, people who are ambassadors, things like that. It's among the Senate's final actions items of this calendar year before the holiday recess. The vote fits into a broader power dispute between Senate Democrats and White House over nominees. Historically, the president's pick for lower executive branch positions have been confirmed by the upper chamber through unanimous voice votes, allowing dozens or hundreds of nominees to be quickly confirmed in minimal time. Since Trump reclaimed the White House, however, Democrats have broken from this precedent, using a variety of Senate parliamentary measures and traditions to slow the confirmation level of appointees to a crawl. If that doesn't tell you that we're at war and that the Democrat goal is to destroy the U.S., what will? Because these are just low-level appointees that you need to run the government. Why aren't they approving them? Because they don't want the government to be run. They want the government to fail. They want Trump to fail. They want you to fail. They want us to fail. Okay? This is the evidence you can share with people and say, why are they doing this? You know what this is? You know what this is? This is a rejection of elections by the Dems who tell you that Trump's a threat to democracy. What's more democratic than last year's election? We won. They lost. If you cared about America and you just didn't like what Trump was doing, you still approve the people he needs to run the government. It's anti-American, it's anti-democratic, and it's proof that they are at war and their goal is to destroy our nation. All right. Speaking of destroying our nation or destroying themselves, I don't know where you want to put this. This just drives me nuts. 4 Republicans vote against banning child sex changes. Again, seriously, you're going to vote against this. Bill, because you're in a swing district, don't you know? Shut up. Republican Georgia Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene secured one last victory before her quickly approaching resignation date in January. The House voted Wednesday evening to pass Greene's bill criminalizing child sex change procedures nationwide over the objections of 4 House Republicans. 3 Democrat lawmakers, Representative Henry Collier, Vincent Gonzalez of Texas, and Don Davis of North Carolina, crossed party lines to support Greene's measure. All 3 Democrat lawmakers represent swing districts that Republicans are seeking to flip during next year's midterms. So they're playing the same damn game. Oh, don't care about kids. Don't care about protecting children. It's all about you and you're having power and being in office and making money. To hell with those kids. Come on, what do you expect? 4 Republicans who voted against the child sex change procedure ban are Representative Gabe Evans of Colorado, Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania, Mike Kennedy of Utah, and Mike Lawler of New York. Greene's bill, the Protect Child Innocence Act, would make it a Class C felony to perform child sex change procedures, an offense punishable by up to 10 years in prison. Not enough. Not enough. If you mutilate children, you should get the death penalty. Parents of those who assist minors in gaining access to sex change procedures would also be subject to punishment. So that's a good thing. If a parent subjects a child against their will to these treatments, they could be charged. The vote marked the first time legislation banning puberty blockers, hormones, and surgeries for minors seeking to alter their biological sex reached the House. Now it's got to go to the Senate. We'll see what the senators do, the good senators do, right? The ones who tell you how much they care about children. Yeah, we'll see. So I don't know if it ever passes the Senate or if it ever gets brought up in the Senate. So I was real glad to see RFK Jr. announce actions against transgender procedures on children. This is not medicine. It is malpractice, he said. He said it's malpractice. The Trump administration is taking 6 decisive actions against transgender procedures on children, Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced on Thursday. According to a press release detailing the actions, HHS is aiming to carry out President Donald Trump's executive order directing HHS to end the practice of sex-rejecting procedures on children that expose young people to irreversible harm. This is what Kennedy said. Doctors assume a solemn obligation to protect children. Doctors across the country now provide needless and irreversible sex-rejecting procedures that violate their sacred Hippocratic oath, endangering the very lives that they are sworn to safeguard. The American Medical Association, the American Academy of Pediatrics peddle a lie, said Kennedy, and they do, that chemical and surgical sex-rejecting procedures could be good for children who suffer from gender dysphoria, he said, explaining that they have betrayed the estimated 300,000 American youth aged 13 to 17 conditioned to believe that sex can be changed. They betrayed their Hippocratic oath to do no harm. So-called gender-affirming care was inflicted lasting physical and psychological damage on vulnerable young people. This is not medicine. It is malpractice. This is not medicine. This is malpractice. We are done with junk science driven by ideological pursuits, not the well-being of children. A peer-reviewed report published by the HHS Office of Assistant Secretary for Health last month confirms that sexual rejecting procedures impose medical dangers and lasting harm on children who receive those interventions, Kennedy added, announcing the 6 decisive actions guided by what he described as gold standard science, as well as the executive order from President Trump, will protect America's children from these procedures. Amen. Amen. About time. And then this was kind of interesting, and I want to take a minute to get into this because I found it interesting. Regenerative farming just went mainstream. Here's why it matters. What is regenerative farming? I asked. My phone started ringing almost at once. Text messages, links, alerts. People were telling me that Agricultural Secretary Brooke Rollins was about to make a major announcement on December 10th relating to regenerative agriculture. A YouTube link was circulating. The live stream was about to begin. There was a sense of anticipation in the air. When the video came on, Rollins stood alongside Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and others. What stood out immediately was not the funding amount, but the language. Soil health, human health, nutrition density, the microbiome and microbiology, the living systems beneath our feet and within our bodies were finally being discussed as part of one connected reality. That language matters. The announcement itself came $700 million allocated to our regenerative agriculture. On paper, that sounds significant. In reality, when spread across the acreage that is already regenerative, it comes out to roughly $16 per acre. My phone began lighting up again, this time with frustration and disappointment. Farmers were doing the math. Many committed to the $12 billion recently allocated to soybean farmers to ease losses from China no longer buying their soybeans. The imbalance felt familiar. So $700 million are going to these regenerative farms and $12 billion to soybean farmers, okay? I felt that disappointment myself, but I stopped. Because the truth is, the government is not going to save us. It never was. What matters is what was said on that stage out loud at the highest level of agriculture leadership. Years of pushing, educating, farming, and speaking have forced the mainstream to acknowledge that regenerative agriculture exists and that what many of us have been saying for years is not fringe, not experimental, and not untested, is rooted in biological reality. Wow, that's pretty good. but I didn't understand. So maybe you don't either. I'm gonna tell you what I found. What's the difference between organic farming and regenerative farming? Organic farming is a regulated system that focuses on what inputs are allowed or prohibited. Core principles: no synthetic fertilizers or pesticides, no GMOs, no synthetic herbicides, limited approved natural inputs like compost, manure, biological pest controls. Key characteristics: it's governed by formal USDA rules. Certification required to label products as organic emphasizes chemical avoidance more than ecosystem outcomes. A farm can technically be organic and still degrade soil over time, rely heavily on tillage, and be monoculture based. Organic farming is mainly about what you don't use, chemicals and stuff. Regenerative farming is a system-based approach focused on restoring and improving natural ecosystems, especially the soil. Now that found that really interesting. Core principles: build and restore soil health, increase carbon sequestration, improve water retention, enhance biodiversity, strengthen farm resilience and productivity long term, and common practices are cover crops year round. So there's crops on the land all the time, minimal or no tillage, crop rotation and polycultures, compost and biologic inputs, manage rotational grazing for livestock, so having livestock intermixed with the crops, integrating animals with crops. So basically what it's about is preserving our biome, our soil, versus organic, which is, giving you food that isn't poisoned with chemicals. Both good. I'm for this. Kudos to RFK Jr. And if you know more about this and you think I should cover it more, write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org and tell me your experience, because that's awesome. So then, again, I think people watch this podcast, you really appreciate the breadth and depth of what you get here, okay? Good news and bad news, but it's all news and it's all truth. We talk about good health, we just did, with this organic foods and this regenerative farming. Walmart comes out with this video, this commitment to getting pesticides and stuff and chemicals out of our food. I thought this was great. Here's a short video.
So the nation's biggest retailer embracing the MAHA movement, Walmart, currently working on making its store brand food free of food dyes and 30 other ingredients. From Bentonville, Arkansas, the headquarters for Walmart, Fox Business' Kelly Saberi is looking at that. What'd you find out, Kelly?
Hi, Bill. Welcome to Walmart's Culinary Innovation Center. This new building is 23,000 square feet where food scientists, chefs, and people like you and me taste test these foods. Now, this is a massive undertaking as the nation's biggest grocer, and each of these products has its own unique challenges. Take candy, for example. Not only are they taking out the colors of the original product, but they're also working out both the taste and texture, which we know is equally as important. And it's one of their top-selling categories. So let's take the sour worms, for example. They have titanium dioxide in them, and now they'll take that out, which removes that pop of neon. New versions use things like spirulina and turmeric for the color, and if you can believe it, I think the new version actually tastes better than the original. So I asked, how will Walmart, such a big company present in 9 out of 10 homes, change the way Americans eat? They tell me their decisions are dictated by the consumer, not the other way around.
Customers are turning over that package, that bag, or looking digitally at those ingredients more than they ever have. More than half of the customers are actually very in tune and looking at those ingredient labels, and they wanted simplicity, they wanted transparency, and they wanted things they could pronounce and that they understood.
The part that I found most fascinating is the idea that they're aiming to keep their costs exactly the same. 70% of their portfolio is priced under $5. And all of this feels especially important as we round out the holidays this month. There are so many things that we need to entertain. And right now, 90% of their fleet of products already has this dye-free promise. Now, what's going to happen with the rest of the products? By January of 2027, Walmart says they will have this promise finished and ready for their consumers.
Oh, okay. All right. Changing times indeed.
Wow, that's exciting. Thank you, RFK Jr. Thank you, Maha. All you people who fought for this for your whole lives. That we didn't understand that we were being poisoned. We didn't understand that food is medicine and that we need to eat good food. Thank you, Walmart. This is terrific. And what did they say? He goes, customers are turning over the packages and reading the labels, and we're listening to them. That's why you got to do that. They want ingredients they can pronounce. Oh, yeah, great tip. Now, Nan and I, we used to do Amazon because it was so convenient. But then we heard about Walmart when they got rid of being woke and they started, helping to fund jobs for the skilled trades, and they did all these other things. We started to promote using Walmart at least as much as Amazon, and we found that the website is equally convenient. But better yet, there's a frickin' store. Amazon doesn't have a store. And so the groceries and stuff are just, it's really convenient. And so if you go to your Walmart store, and I know many of you just order online, and that's what we mostly do, but if you're there, tell them, thank you for fixing your food. Thank you for taking seriously good, healthy food. And the main thing was that I talk about all the time, why isn't healthy food as inexpensive as bad food? And they just said, we're going to make the products at the same price. That tells me they probably should be cheaper, so hopefully there'll be some competition because they're going to make money at the same price selling you healthy food. We're headed in the right direction. Take advantage of it. Take care of your health. Don't eat the poison. Organic food, things that don't have the chemicals, that's what you need. Okay, don't have too many more stories for the podcast here, but we'll go through the last few. This is great news. Wisconsin judge found guilty of obstruction for aiding immigrants in ICE raid. This story you're familiar with. The ICE was going to pick up these illegals in Wisconsin. The judge distracted them, sent the illegal out of a back door, and she was charged, but she was convicted. And this is a big deal. Wisconsin judge was found guilty of obstruction on December 18th at being accused of aiding an illegal immigrant evading federal immigration agents outside her courtroom in April. The jury found Milwaukee County Judge Hannah Dugan, 66, guilty of obstruction, a charge that carries up to 5 years in prison. Commenting on the ruling, U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche said, the court decision serves as a reminder that no one is above the law, including judges. I've said to you, we will turn the corner when we start putting in prison the elected officials, the judges, right, the prosecutors, the mayors, the police chiefs who are illegally claiming sanctuary cities or they can decide who's legal and who's illegal. No. This is the first case I'm seeing. Share it with everyone, and then we got to build on this. For those who are like me, a white male, I need you to sit down, put your coffee cup down, because I'm about to show you something you never thought you'd see in your life. Okay? And if your girlfriend or spouse or your daughter or someone's there, tell them to hold your hand because you're about to be shocked beyond belief. Watch this.
I'm Andrea Lucas, chair of the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Are you a white male who's experienced discrimination at work based on your race or sex? You may have a claim to recover money under federal civil rights laws. Contact the EOC as soon as possible. Time limits are typically strict for filing a claim. The EOC is the federal agency charged with enforcing federal anti-discrimination law against businesses and other private sector employers. The EOC is committed to identifying, attacking, and eliminating all forms of race and sex discrimination, including against white male applicants and employees. Check out EOC.gov to learn more and read our one-page explainer about DEI-related discrimination.
What? White men can sue for discrimination in the job place? And the U.S. government is going to back you up? Pinch me. Where are we? What country is this? It might be, are we back in 1950? Is this not about damn time? Racism, discrimination is for everyone. But, oh no, not for you white men. Oh, no, not for you. No, you cannot get the raise. You cannot get the promotion. You can not get the job because you're privileged, so they said. You've got everything anyway, so they said. Wow. Share that video. It'll be on our podcast page at We the People Convention. It's on our X account. Share that video. Congratulations. You're finally being treated as an equal person with the same rights that our Constitution gives us. What a shocker. Okay. This is a good news story here as we get to the end of the show. 4 members of far-left group charged for alleged terror plot in California. Federal law enforcement officials said Monday that 4 members of the far-left anti-government group have been arrested and face charges for allegedly planning a series of bomb attacks across Southern California on New Year's Eve. Attorney General Pam Bondi wrote on X that the Justice Department and FBI printed what would have been a massive and horrific terror plot in the Central District of California. Patel said that 4 people who faced charges were members of a group known as Turtle Island Liberation Front. Bondi described the Turtle Island Liberation Front as a far-left, pro-Palestinian, anti-government, and anti-capitalist group. Bill Esali, who leads the U.S. Attorney's Office in Los Angeles, said at a press conference that the 4 individuals were arrested Friday in San Bernardino County, where they gathered to construct and detonate test explosives in the Mojave Desert. He said the suspects allegedly crafted a detailed, coordinated bomb, a plot to bomb 2 U.S. companies on New Year's Eve with the devices simultaneously exploding at midnight. Okay? Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you to the FBI. Thank you to the DOJ. Thank you for protecting America. That's awesome. This is an interesting story. It kind of just struck me. President Trump gives federal workers 2 more days off. Because Christmas is on a Thursday, he's getting them off the 24th, Wednesday, which is Christmas Eve, and the 26th, which is Friday after Christmas. And I guess I get it. President Donald Trump signed an executive order Thursday closing the federal government. All federal departments and agencies have been closed for the day before and after Christmas. It happened once before, but it just, to me, how many of these people are even Christians? How many of them are going to celebrate Christmas Eve or even Christmas? But we, the taxpayers, after reimbursing them for shutting down the government for 43 days, we're going to pay them now for 2 extra days because Donald Trump is a nice guy. I don't know. He could have given them Friday. I would have been okay with that. But Wednesday and Friday, I don't know. Take a vacation day, all right? Do something on your own. Don't take it from me. Don't take it from us. I don't know. Maybe I'm the Grinch now. Let me know. I'm sorry. Okay. A couple more things. This is a really good video, and I just want to share it with you so you will share it when you're talking to people on the holiday, okay?
We got a skills gap. It's wide. It's big. We got 7.2 million men who are not participating in the workforce, not looking for work. We got $1.7 trillion in student loans on the books. We got 7.6 million open positions that don't require a 4-year degree. And yet, we keep lending money we don't have to kids who are never going to be able to pay it back to train them for jobs that don't exist anymore. If we want to close the skills gap, we got to make a more persuasive case for millions of good jobs that nobody knows about and nobody understands. These are 6-figure jobs or opportunities that lead straight to a 6-figure career. They're everywhere. And if we don't reinvigorate the trades, I'm afraid the president's best efforts to bring manufacturing back to these shores is going to run into a real roadblock. We need an enthused workforce, skilled for the jobs that are out there.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. So this holiday season, what are you going to do to promote someone you meet or know to join the skilled trades, to take one of these jobs? We have all over our website, wethepeopleconvention.org. Just search on Mike Rowe, just search on Rowe, R-O-W-E. You'll see more videos. You'll see links. You'll see apprenticeships, opportunities. We cannot survive as a nation if we cannot manufacture our own stuff. These pharmaceutical companies who pledged to cut prices, watch that video. They also, all of them, pledged to move billions of dollars of manufacturing plants. It's like 17 of them in North Carolina alone. The one lady said from one pharmaceutical company, we're going to bring 11,000 jobs to North Carolina. Who's going to fill them? We, you and I, have to take a personal responsibility. Anyone you know who's talking about going to college, you got to really challenge them, because that ain't their future. That's not their future. Share that video. You can copy it on your phone and have it with you and play it for people. You can just go to WeThePeopleConvention.org, click on that video on our podcast list, and it'll take you to the place on X, and then you can copy the link to that on your phone and just play it to people. This is job number one, because we can fight like hell to save our country next year, but if we can't manufacture anything, if we can't get these kids out of poverty and sharing the American dream, it's not going to work. You can't save the country and then not have a country. We have a country because we used to have a vibrant middle class that could live the life of the American dream. We can have it again, but you and I have to make it happen. Take action to defend our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity and our nation. Recruit people to join the skilled trades. Serious stuff. All right, so we're going to wrap it up with stuff about Charlie Kirk and Turning Point. I shared this story. Tennessee to have Turning Point USA in every high school. This was an awesome story. I was so excited to see this. Nearly 100 students, bright-eyed and hungry for change, gathered at the Tennessee State Capitol building Friday morning, some having driven all night to make the event. There, in a room full of young conservatives, a group of Tennessee officials, including Senator Marsha Blackburn, announced a partnership with Turning Point USA. Soon, every high school in the state will have a chapter of Club America, TPUSA's high school affiliate. Club America, like all of TPUSA, aims to advance the mission of group leader Charlie Kirk, to make being a conservative cool. The founding of the country, the Constitution, capitalism. TPUSA Senior Director John Tafalt told the Daily Wire, the branding is meant to feel like it's something that everyone wants to be a part of, because who doesn't want to be part of Club America? We wanted to create a presentation to high schools that would be very tough to say no to. Blackburn was joined by women's sports activist Riley Gaines and Tennessee Senator Jack Johnson for the announcement. The volunteer state joins Texas and Florida, which have also taken steps to launch Club America chapters throughout their states. What are you going to do to help do that in your state? That's how you make America better. That's how you help American youth. That's how you counter the propaganda and the indoctrination. Okay? They're doing it in Tennessee. All you guys in Tennessee, attaboy. All you guys in Texas, Florida, thank you. The rest of us, another thing on the Christmas list, right? And if you're not watching this weekend, this podcast is being recorded on Saturday morning, but the rest of Saturday and Sunday, they're doing a Merifest in Arizona for Turning Point USA. 32,000 people in attendance. Every conservative speaker you can name has been doing it. Real America's Voice, the network that does Steve Bannon's War Room and stuff, is covering it wall to wall. You can see that on Rumble. But sit back and watch some of that. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. And again, Turning Point USA is going to be a major, major Army division, and they're the 101st Airborne Division in our war this year to save America and defeat the Marxist left, the communists and the Islamists, the radical Islamists. Okay? We will always work to fulfill Charlie Kirk's mission by completing America's spiritual revival. This is not a political war. This is a spiritual war. We are fighting Satan himself. Only Satan could be behind mutilating children. Only Satan could be behind sex trafficking hundreds of thousands of women and children across our border. Only Satan could be behind that. That's who we're fighting. So that's what Christmas is about, right? It's about the rebirth of Jesus Christ and our recommitment to our Judeo-Christian values. Live that. Enjoy that. Be part of that. So we're going to wrap up our podcast before Christmas. If you need to tell people about this. The more people who see this, the more people who go to our podcast page and look at this week's action items, the better. Send us your comments at info@wethepeopleconvention.org. info@wethepeopleconvention.org. Tell others about this podcast. Donate if you can, but act on the weekly to-do list. Act to defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. I will do the same. I want to wish each and every one of you a blessed and happy and merry and joyous Christmas with family and friends, neighbors, relatives. Enjoy the season. It's why you're alive. It's what life is about. It's joyful. It's fantastic. And it's sure not about presents. It's sure not about presents. Okay? Merry Christmas. We will do a podcast on the Saturday after Christmas, and that'll be our kind of end of year podcast. So I'll see you in a week. All right? Until then, have a great week. Be in good health and in good spirits. May God bless you, and may God bless America. You've been watching the We the People Convention News and Opinion, weekly news and opinion podcast. My name is Tom Zalestowski. Be well. Bye now.
So proudly we hailed at the twilight